Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Madison Lemansky. We're just getting started. Thank you so much for joining. It's very difficult for me to not sing along with Beyonce in the background. So to start, I'd love to invite Jacki Zehner, the ShePlace founder, to our virtual stage here to formally welcome everyone. Thanks for coming.
I hope you all are staying very safe and healthy. My gosh, this code craziness. So Happy New Year. Welcome 2022. Welcome to all of you who are joining us today. And I just want to jump in before turning it over to Maddie and Maureen just to say Happy New Year. It is time for women to flourish. Can we have a snap, snap? Come on, Maddie, you're good at this with my messed up finger. Snap, snap. We're really excited about what we're going to bring to you in 2022. And when we thought about how to start off this year around setting intention, around manifesting what we want to be in the world, what we want to see in the world, how we want the world to grow and evolve. Maddie and I put our heads together and we could think of no better person for you to all meet. If you haven't met her already, she is Utah now Maureen Pelton. And Madison, our amazing COO, and the team has done a great job in preparing for today. And she will formally introduce Maureen to you all. But I just want to give a hard introduction to Maureen. I've had the blessing of being introduced to her by a mutual friend when she moved here to Utah. And I can say since then, my gosh, this woman has just been a complete blessing in my life. And you will see why very shortly. So you'll hear her bio, but no, she's part of us, our ShePlace community. She lives here in Utah. And she's been not only a friend, but a guide, a mentor, and a therapist. I'll come out of the closet with that for me this past little while. And I'm just grateful to you, Maureen, for being with us today. And for all our ShePlacers, thank you for joining. And I hope you enjoy the conversation with Madison and Maureen. Love you, Maureen.
Thanks, Jacki.
Thank you, Jacki. Let's see. Oh, perfect. So we appreciate you all joining here on Run the World. We are really committed at ShePlace to utilize companies and softwares that are owned and operated by women. So we're proud to share Run the World is owned and founded by a woman of color. It is a newer software, and so hence there's a few capabilities that are a bit limited, and so we acknowledge that, but we are working with it because it's important to us to support this company and not just autopilot everything on Zoom because we all know they've made plenty of money these last couple of years. So thank you for your patience as we engage on this platform. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples whose unceded lands we are all calling in from. Maureen is currently in Palm Springs, California, which is the land of the Cahuilla people. Am I saying that right, Maureen?
I think so.
And we here in Utah, Jacki dialing in from Park City and me calling in from Bountiful, are on the ancestral lands of the Ute Tribal Nation and the northwestern band of the Shoshone Nation. We are committed to doing a land acknowledgement practice at all of our events at ShePlace, just as a starting point to really honor the truth and history of our country and many of the countries of the world. So we are honored to be here. I'm really happy to be joining Maureen on this topic, the art of caring. You know, and as Jack mentioned, when we think about, you know, how to begin the year, I know for me personally, I get in this loop every year of, okay, new year, I'm going to have balance this year. I'm going to exercise really regularly. I'm going to eat well. And then inevitably I disappoint myself and then re-up usually the same goals every year. And as we talked to Maureen about this, she really challenged this idea of self-care and the way that we normally think about it in our modern culture, and invited us to think more about how we care about others as a form of caring for ourselves and how those are all really integrated. So that is the theme of our call. I'll let Maureen expand on that topic. But I'd love to introduce you all to Maureen Pelton. Maureen's a behavioral scientist with 38 years of professional experience facilitating human flourishing. She's also an investor in mental wellness, consciousness, and the spirituality space. I'm one of the first investors in Insight Timer, which is an app I use almost every single day. So thank you, Maureen, for your leadership there. But would love to just invite you to introduce yourself more fully to the community and maybe share a word about how this journey in consciousness raising and human flourishing really began.
Oh, thank you, Madison. That's a good question. Basically, I've been very passionate about humans and what it is to be human, and I've been very curious. And I decided to go to grad school to really explore human development, the social sciences, spirituality, and try and find context for what it really means to be a human being. And in my work, I worked my first work out of graduate schools in the corporate world. I've had a private practice. I've been in the integrative health space. I'm an investor. But what I really discovered is and I kind of knew this even when I was young. I mean, because I was so curious. But what I really observed was, as human beings, from the moment of conception, we are being conditioned. We are being entrained. And we don't know what we don't know because we know the little world that we're raised in. And so in my work, what I was finding was, especially with women, but with men too, that our ability to really go inward and know who we truly are and our true nature was limited due to conditioning of our intellect. Now, I love my intellect. I love it. It gets me organized, gets me up in the morning, has a lot of knowledge, but that knowledge changes over time as I learn more. But so much of our operating in the world, our autopilot, is based on beliefs and narratives and reactions and programming, as I call it. And self-care is a really good example about that. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is the deepening of what self-care really means.
And where are we learning these things, Maureen? Is it just our parents? Is it culture? Is it our workplace? I mean, all of the above. This is just kind of coming at us from all directions.
Well, we're little sponges, right, when we're young. And so, it starts with our family systems and then our religions and our school systems and our cultures. And it's limited to the social milieu that we're in growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, for me, I grew up in a small all white community in Wisconsin, southern Wisconsin. And, it was very limited what I was exposed to. And I questioned everything. I mean, my dad jokes about this, but he said my first word was why. For some reason, I didn't just take it all in and absorb it. So I was constantly challenging. And when I went off to college and was expanded into a world that wasn't just white people or Christian people, I really thrived because I was able to start to see and learn different ways of being in the world.
Mm. Yeah. Thanks for that background. So I'd love to dig into this topic. It's 1/11 and it's the 11th. We have a thing about 11s here at ShePlace, so I just had to acknowledge that. I want to dive into this topic of, how you define caring versus caregiving versus caretaking. And if we could, I'd love to just, dig deep into those areas. And then I understand you're going to guide us through a facilitated exercise at about 1:30 Mountain Time. So I just invite anybody, as we're having this conversation, if you'd like to have a journal close by, I think we'll be doing more of a visualization exercise, but if you want to take notes, if it's useful to you, now might be a good time to just quickly grab a journal before we dig in. But let's start with that question, if we could, Maureen. How would you differentiate caregiving versus caretaking?
Right. Well, first I want to start by saying, for me, care, right, just care, comes from the heart. It's the intelligence of the heart. It's not from the intellect. And the intellect, we can be modeled or conditioned or programmed to should ourselves and to think that care is to do this. But truly care is coming from our heart intelligence. And you all know what that's like. It's that little twinge or that little ping we get. And we're like, oh, and we care, we care about ourselves. We care about others. And we care if people are suffering, but it's an embodied sensation, feeling. It's not a thought. And caring is the intelligence of the heart in action. And it really is about empowerment and personal sovereignty, actually. And I'm really talking about this on a much deeper level, right, than just, eating well and sleeping well. And this is what I'm talking about is self-care in the way of, and caring and caregiving in the way of how we engage in the world, how we show up in the world, how we empower ourselves and empower others. And sometimes that's hard to know if, we're used to having a certain way be modeled to us. So what I'm really talking about is this ability to give and to care in our giving, but include ourselves in that. Whereas caretaking, in this context, I'm using caretaking as a negative. Caretaking is what a lot of women in particular are conditioned into, which is that we need to take care of the tribe. So therefore, we are focused on everyone else's needs. And we feel like we know what people need, and we make assumptions. And we think it's our responsibility, and we want to fix things, and we're uncomfortable with other people suffering, so we want to fix it. And with a lot of people, it becomes our value. We don't even realize it, but our value is in caretaking and doing for others. The problem with caretaking, and why I say it's a negative in this situation, is what the research shows is if we're stepping in and caretaking and wanting to do for others and think we know and want to fix it, or we're sacrificing ourselves for them, what happens is people become dependent, and then they become resentful, and we become martyrs, and we feel like we're expected to be this way, and we lose ourselves in it. So care is an innate feeling. Caregiving is when I want to talk more about this, but it's when we include ourselves. So we are definitely giving care, but we're also included. And whereas caretaking, we're not often including ourselves, and there's a lot of conditioning around it. And, I've worked with so many women in particular, some men, but I start to see that it's in our bones. It's eons of the patriarchy of we're responsible and we have to take care of everything. And we don't even know any different. We just feel it's our responsibility, or that we know what's best. And so we step in and do it.
I'm sweating a little because I'm like guilty of this. It's happened to me, and it happened recently, actually. Just, as you're speaking, there's a situation where I was cooking with my mom and my husband, and my husband said something to my mom that I was sure just like deeply offended her. And she was just, pissed about it. But then I was like, oh, my mom wouldn't say anything. She wants to be kind to my husband. So I got in this huge fight with my husband later. Like, why would you say that to my mom? I think you need to apologize. Like, he's like, well, she didn't say anything. And I said, I know, but she doesn't want to. She loves you and she doesn't want to offend you. And I got in this big argument with my husband because he's like, by you saying this, you don't feel like your mom can speak up for herself. And so, yeah, if your mom has an issue, I'm happy to hear it from her and address it with her, but I don't think there's anything wrong here. And it was 2 days of fighting before finally the three of us sat down. My mom was like, nothing offended me. I'm fine. So I had made up this entire story about how, I need to protect my mom. I need to get in the middle here so that they can work it out. But, I felt guilty after the fact because I realized how often, and I'm grateful my mom is not on the call in this case, but I've talked to her about it since. But yeah, how often I feel this need to protect her, but it's actually coming from a place of me feeling like she maybe can't protect herself, and just how yeah, how often that happens to me. So guilty as charged over here.
Well, that's a really good example because, and your husband was very wise, that's the challenge. When we step in like that and we feel like we know or we should do it or, whatever, what we're really telling the other person is they're not capable. Like we're not actually saying that, but that is the energy and that is the message.
Mm-hmm.
And so how to transform this is caregiving, which, like I said, includes ourselves, where we actually, caring is basically, we actually see that someone may be challenged or may be struggling. They may even tell us they're challenged or struggling, or they need something. And we acknowledge, we witness, we send loving kindness, and then we actually say, what do you need? How can I support you? Is there anything you need? I know my daughters in particular would call up from college and be like, Mom, blah, 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 blah. And I'd listen. And then when they took a breath, I would say, what do you need? Do you need me to just listen? Do you need me? Do you want to try and problem solve this? And they would pause. And then they would go, oh, no, I just need you to listen. Or no, I would like some help with this. And when you do that, when you say to the person, what do you need? Is there something I can do to support you? You actually give it back to them. And you notice when you do that, they do have to pause and go, oh. And I have asked hundreds of women that question, what do you need? And majority of them, powerful, successful women, look like deer in the headlights. They look at me and they've said, these are things they've said. No one's ever asked me that. I don't know what I need. And actually, isn't that selfish? That's really selfish to be thinking about myself. Or my needs aren't important. I mean, it's just how we've been oriented. And to be able to stop and say, no, actually, you are important. Your needs are important. You're responsible for knowing what you need, owning what you need, asking for what you need. And so are others. And so it's shifting into this place of, even when I see someone suffering, I can ask them, what do you need? And if it doesn't include me, if I have to sacrifice myself to give them what they need, I often say that that's not going to work for me. Is there something else that would work? Because that's including me and that's caring. And really, if you think about it, how do we know how to care if we don't care for ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? So, the difference here is about how we engage in the world and how we're empowering ourselves and empowering others while we're caring, while we're caregiving, and really letting go of that urge to caretake. And for a lot of people, myself included, really coming to terms with that and seeing that is hard, because it is kind of the operating system, and it is where we can get some value or feel like we're making a difference when we're caretaking. Yeah.
Well, and I think about, for me too, I personally have felt a lot of my value coming from my ability to take care of other people. And from the time I was a child, I have pictures of me just like caring for little baby dolls. Like, as women, I think especially, we get a lot of praise for, giving ourselves until we're totally depleted. And so I love that. Yeah, just frame that the best way we can care for ourselves is to pay close attention to how we care for other people. And this may be revealing about how I feel about others, but what if someone really doesn't know what they need? What if they say, like, what, your point, deer in headlights, no one's ever asked me that. I don't know what I need.
Right.
I mean, what's a good path forward in that situation?
Right. Well, and in those situations, it's first saying, well, your needs are important, right? Like, they are really important. And can I help you look at what options or possibilities there might be? Personal example is I went through many years ago, I went through a divorce and I did it my way. Right. And I had lots of people coming up to me telling me how it should be and projecting onto me. And I just think to myself, is there a divorce manual I don't know about? Because that's not how I'm doing it. We had a very conscious and collaborative collaborative and sweet divorce, actually. And so since that time, I've known a lot of people going through divorce, and I never assume that I know what they need. I just say, I know going through divorce can be hard. Do you need anything? And a lot of times they're like, I don't know. I don't know what I need. And then I say, okay, well, what are some possibilities? What are some options? Here are some things I know, la, 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 la. And some resonate with them and some don't. But it's really like whatever we go through and however we may get through things doesn't mean that is how someone else would go through it. They may have a completely different way of going through it. And so how do we support them in that? What do they need?
I mean, I think too that prevents you from falling into advice giving, which, you know, we at ShePlace try to avoid shitting on people, as you said earlier. But I think to be able to start with that, you know, in my experience, this is what worked for me. Being able to, because I do think you hear someone going through something hard, if you resonate with it, naturally my impulse is to share my own experience. But I think, yeah, clearly stating like, this is what worked for me. Let's explore some options that might work for you. I feel like that could be a really supportive way to both share and not shit on people.
Right.
So I really appreciate that. We have a couple of questions floating in, which we'll, at the end of our conversation here, we will give people the opportunity to come on our virtual stage with the mic. But just quickly, because I think this is relevant to this question from Jacki, if we know or live with someone who's in that cycle, caretaking and then resentful, they're in the martyr position. What's a good thing to do in that case?
Well, that's challenging because more than likely their value comes from that. And so being able to talk to them about it and being able to say, you know, I am capable, right? I am capable and I don't need you to do that. And I would appreciate it if you would ask me what I need. Or, you know, the other challenge is, you know, this is what I need, and they may think you need something else, so they don't listen to your need. I mean, full disclosure, when my husband, my incredible husband, came into my life, I had known him through the kids. So I'd known him for a few years and I knew how he operated. And he had said to me, would you be willing to date me, or I like you, or I can't remember exactly what he said. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, 2 conditions. You don't caretake me, and you don't walk on eggshells around me. And he's like, yeah, no problem. And I said, you have no idea what I just said. You need to talk to your therapist. And I knew he was in therapy because his dad had passed away and he was doing some work on himself. And he said, okay, I'll talk to my therapist. And he came back and he's like, oh my God, I had no idea what you were talking about. And he's like, all right, I'm going to try really hard not to do that. And I said, yep. And every time you do it, I'm going to call you out on it. So for 6 months of dating, I was calling him out quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I love that advice too, of like having a core conversation that you can come back to. That if it's a pattern, you know, at least having the conversation, then maybe saying like, I'm going to call you out on it. Like, we'll come back to this. At least it gives you an anchor point to return with that person.
Exactly.
Okay, I know if you're doing that again, can we go back to that conversation we had?
Right.
So I really love that.
Right.
So it's hard to talk about self-care without considering privilege. And I think the way I think of self-care typically is, of course, the massage, the spin classes, you know, the things that cost time and money. But I think even, you know, even for folks that are maybe working 3 jobs, raising kids by themselves and are just drained, just don't have the capacity to spend a lot of time here. Well, not advice, but what insights would you share based on your experience? Like around, like, are there little ways to bring this into your daily life that maybe don't require a lot of time or financial resources?
Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm talking about this deepening level versus the actual like sleep well, eat, exercise. this deepening level of self-care and of caring, what people find is when they start to include themselves, when they start to like check in with themselves and say, okay, what do I need? I've got kids to take care of. I'm working these jobs. I'm, whatever you're managing. What is it that I need? And you start to tune into that. Then you start to look for ways to get those needs met. Like I will say to women, okay, you're single, you have kids, you're working. Do you know other single moms with kids that you trust and like? Can you guys share child responsibilities so that you get some time off or they get some time off? If you're, at work, I remember this too. This was early on in my career. I was on a leadership team and I realized we'd have meetings and they'd be like, oh, Maureen can do it. And I'd be like, yeah, I can do it because I could. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, I have my plate is full. So I started to go, yep, I can do it, but then somebody needs to take this. So it's learning to say, yes, I can do that. And I do want to do that. So take this off my plate. Or yeah, I can do that. And nope, I'm not going to. And I have time or interest. So it's that place of checking with yourself, like, well, what is it that I need? What about me? How am I including myself? And I'm serious. A lot of women struggle with feeling selfish when they do that. But it's the last thing is that it's selfish. It's actually trying to preserve the well. It's actually trying to fill the well. So it's you can't take care of yourself the way that you need to until you really start checking in with what do I actually need and how do I get that need met? It's my responsibility to get my needs met. And when you start really practicing that, you start to realize other people have that same ability. They are capable, and it's very empowering when they know what they need and they're able to get their needs met, and it's not on us.
Mm-hmm. And a relief if you spend time with people that, are modeling that for you. I feel like it's kind of an invitation for you to do the same thing.
Right. And we have, I just want to add, we have the best intentions. I mean, I just had an incident happen a year ago when my mom was in the hospital in Wisconsin and she came out and she's with my dad and it's COVID and she's not well at all. And my dad has to take care of her. So I immediately start looking around for food delivery services to give them food. I can do that. I can afford to So I call up my mom and Mom, let me get this food delivery system for you so you guys don't have to worry about this and you can eat nutritious food. And she goes, oh, that sounds really good. Let me talk to your dad. And then she gets back to me and says, nope, we're not going to do it. And I'm like, why not? She's like, because your dad wants to do it. Let me talk to Dad. Dad, I'm really happy to do this. He's like, no, I'm quite capable. He actually said those words. I'm quite capable. I want to do this. I can do this. I'm like, but you have to take care of Mom. They can't, it's COVID. They're not having this in-house care. He's like, no, I can do it. I really can. I'm like, okay, you can do it. And if you can't, if you need anything, please call me. He's like, okay. So I had the best intention, but I was thinking I knew what they needed and they were fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this kind of collaboration between heart and mind that you spoke to. Like the heart can cue you, like, oh, wow, I care about this. But then you can collaborate with your mind to say how can I show up in a way that's healthy for me in this situation? And have I checked with this person to see if that's actually what they need?
Yeah, and I wasn't going to fly back to Wisconsin, but I wanted to in some way, but just checking in with them was enough.
Yeah. Well, I think about because in some cases for myself, I have a story that if I can surprise them with this, then they'll love it so much more. If I can meet that need before they even know they have it, that's something I've said more than once.
Oh,
yeah, I know. Danger.
We could dive into that.
Yeah. Well, let's not go too deep. So thank you so much, Maureen. This is so helpful. And I really appreciate just the cues and triggers because I think, that type of stuff is helpful for me. If I feel really angry, I know I feel vulnerable. So I try to use my emotions to tell me what's happening. And so that cue from the heart to check those few things is super helpful. So I want to leave plenty of space for the visualization exercise that you're going to guide us through, but I want to just quickly tease that we will be featuring you in our She Money newsletter this month, related to your investment thesis around human flourishing. And I just want to mention that to you all because hopefully you all have subscribed to the She Money newsletter. If not, Shay will post it here in the chat for you all, and I encourage you to subscribe. But perhaps you could just say a breath about why you're investing in these companies, like why you've catalyzed all of your investment dollars into this human flourishing space.
Well, it's really, again, back to personal empowerment and personal sovereignty. I was involved with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Richie Davidson from Wisconsin. He's the neuroscientist who's been studying, one of the leading neuroscientists studying contemplative practice. And there was, 10 years ago, there was 25 years of science that supported this. So my husband and I, really wanted to look for ways for this scientifically valid, scalable applications to be available to the masses so that people could start to go inside, to internalize. Through our first investments were in mindfulness and meditation, but it's about going inward so we can connect with our true nature and really become aware of the conditioning, the beliefs, the programming, the reactions, the narratives, and decide if they serve us or not. And if they don't, to be able to change those. And that is part of human flourishing. And in 10 years, this industry has just gone bonkers. And I don't know if there's any, Fortune 500 company that doesn't have access to either the meditation app for their employees or mindfulness, a person in mindfulness in the company. And 3 or 4 years ago, we decided to go deeper since so many people are meditating and aware of mindfulness and deeper levels of consciousness became an interest of ours. And so now we're really looking at scalable applications for going deeper.
Amazing. Well, feel lucky to be on the receiving end of all of that work. And just thanks for the context and a little bit bigger picture of what you're up to in the world. So I'd love to turn it over to you to just guide this exercise, invite people to get comfortable in their seats. And I'll probably just go off camera to avoid distraction for this period. And of course, Maureen, you're welcome to stay on camera or go off as you prefer. But we'll just be in this guided facilitation for 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll come back for a group discussion.
Great. So this is just a simple guided visualization around tuning in to our bodies, to our hearts, and to our what we need. And so what I want to encourage you to do for this guided visualization is to think of a time recently. The holidays just passed, so it might be easy, but think of a time recently where you were overwhelmed or stressed or taking on too much. And just take a moment to think about that time or experience. Because I would like that fresh in your mind. And then I'm going to invite you to sit comfortably, close your eyes or at least soften your gaze, and focus on your breath. Just take some deep belly breaths, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, and deep into your belly. So you can be aware of your breath in your body. Be aware of your breath going in your nose, out your mouth, filling up your belly. And just be present and aware of your body, your physical form. You might feel your bum on your chair. You might experience some tension or discomfort. really tune into your physical form, bringing in your breath and experiencing your body. And just send gratitude to your body. Feeling grateful for your physical form, for this vehicle that helps you maneuver through life. And then I want you to just imagine this time, this recent time in your life where you were overwhelmed or stressed or doing too much or caretaking. And just imagine yourself in that situation. See yourself, if anyone else is around, and what the situation is. And notice how you feel in your body. Notice if you're feeling any stress or tension or anxiety. And just get a sense of what's going on. And in the midst of that, just ask yourself, what do I need? What do I need in this situation? What do I need in this moment? And just notice what comes up. You might clearly know. You might not know. You might feel some resistance. Just experience asking yourself what you need and doing your best to know what you need. And how can you get that need met? Do you need to set a boundary? Do you need to ask someone for support? Do you need to include yourself in what's happening? And again, notice what you're experiencing in your body. Notice any sensations or feelings. Notice if your intellect is arguing with you. And just notice how it feels to include yourself, to know what you need. And how to go about getting that need met. And then I want to invite you to bring your awareness and your breath and your focus into your heart center. And just breathe in and out of your heart center. Feeling the care you have for yourself. feeling the intelligence of your heart and how deeply it cares for you and for others. And just let that caring, that intelligence of your heart spread throughout your body. Deepening your connection with yourself. Knowing you are as important as everyone else, and your needs are as important as everyone else. And when you're ready, you can bring yourself back into the present moment and open your eyes. And just be aware. And I know we all have really busy lives with a lot going on, but just taking a moment. Breath is everything. It's the foundation of it's life. It's the foundation of everything. And we are unconscious breathers. So just to take a moment and be conscious with our breath and check in when throughout the day or when a lot is going on, and just checking in and saying, oh, what do I need? Because we are so focused on what the external world and what everyone else needs. And then being able to know what we need. And caring, remember, is the intelligence of the heart in action.
Thank you, Maureen.
You're welcome.
I would love if anyone feels called to share what came up for you in the exercise. Had a couple surprising moments. I'd be glad to share, but also want to give the opportunity to hear from more voices. If there's anything someone would like to share. I apologize. I'm managing tech as well, so if I don't see you right away. I'll say something that was surprising to me, and maybe not after some of my comments, but just as you invited us to shift towards our inward and to ourselves and really ask that question, what do we need in this feeling of overwhelm? I felt a lot of clenching, like a lot of kind of resistance to go there, because that's not where my groove is deepest. So that was just surprising to me. And, as we sat for longer, I was able to relax that. But that was my first kind of reaction, was just like, nope, like don't go there, which was a surprise.
Yeah, again, it's just that conditioning,
Lots of folks are sharing about your voice. Oh, let's see. We have Anne. Hi, Anne. Let me bring you on stage. Oh, let's see here. Sorry. Here we go. There's the button.
Hi.
Hey.
Thanks for being on. Maureen, thank you so much. And what I was going to say was just echoing, that your voice, and just as you were guiding us through that, like, as I was feeling all the things rising up in my body, and, same as Maddie, some resistance and maybe some holding on to some things. But it was always, as I felt those things, your voice was just such a great reminder to bring in that compassion and just like, well, of course I'm having this reaction, you know, like we were kind of entrained and like, I'm human. And so I just kept telling myself over and over again as I would feel those intense feelings, just like, well, of course, and that's okay, you know, and it helped me kind of move beyond that, like, what should I be doing here and what should I be feeling and where are all those nice, lovely feelings that I want to feel when I'm being led through a visualization. So just thank you for the energy and the work you've done for so many years to be able to create an environment where compassion is like at the surface. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
Kirsten wrote, her cat was sitting on the keyboard and also got to absorb the vibration of your voice, which is kind of amazing.
I love cats.
For that comment. That's awesome. Anyone else before? Oh, go ahead, Maureen.
Well, since Anne mentioned this, I do want to just take a brief moment to talk about compassion. I learned at the feet of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Quickly, I just want to help people understand kind of what I call the emotional intelligence of compassion. So this is through the work of Tanya Sanger at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. But when we're born, we are born with emotional contagion, which means you put two infants next to each other. If one starts crying, the other one starts crying. Mm-hmm. As we grow, start to develop, we start to have sympathy for others. You know, mommy, I'm concerned. You know, we know something's wrong and we have sympathy. And then we move into empathy, which is a really important part of our development. And empathy is the ability to stand in their shoes or to understand what they're going through. And for some of us, we're empathic, so we can feel it. And so we can kind of take that on because either we can feel it or we've been through it ourselves. And this is where empathy fatigue comes in, is because we become fatigued because it's not ours, right? Whereas compassion, and the West doesn't get this very well. Compassion is kind of the next step after empathy. Compassion is loving kindness, knowing someone is suffering, but we don't understand it necessarily. Maybe we do, maybe we've been through it, but maybe we don't. And it's an extension of loving kindness going out. And it is an extension of witnessing and acknowledging that they're suffering, but it stays out there and we say, what do you need? Mm-hmm. Do you need support? Whereas with empathy, we bring it in. And that is where we get fatigued. And there is no such thing as compassion fatigue. Compassion actually energizes us. So I just want to make a note on that because in the West, we haven't done a very good job of understanding the differences. And empathy is really important, and it's part of the development of this emotional intelligence. But compassion is really where I like to sit and do my best because I want to be able to acknowledge, witness, be present, but sending loving kindness and asking people what they need versus I am empathic. So sometimes I'll take it on and there's nothing I can do and it drains me.
Yeah. Because then you're carrying it around.
Yeah. And it's not mine.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thanks for that. Let's see. Gail has requested the mic. Let me pass that to you, Gail. Oh, and just while we're waiting for Gail to join, Anne added the empath piece plus the fact that we inherit our mother's stress responses.
Yes.
Creating all this emotional contagion and fatigue. Yes. Compassion energizes us, and I love this. Okay, great. Oh, let's see, Gail. We're going to try this again. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Gail's mic is loading. She's going to join. Yeah, I pride myself on being an empath, but that distinction is so important. I've always said I could never be a nurse. You know, I think I would just be in people's pain and not find my way out in a way. Well, I'm sorry, Gail. I'm not sure why it's not working. I've under the mic a couple times, but she keeps dropping off. Well, I'm aware we only have a few minutes left, so I'll give Gail one more shot while we're waiting here. But let's see. Let's pass the mic to you, Jacki, and see if that one will work.
Just while I'm you're trying to figure out how to get Gail in here. Maureen, one of the things, and I think I have some friends that joined the call today that I find so fascinating about you, is that you're trained in all these different modalities. And I think I've shared with a lot of my friends that I've been doing something very unique with you, which is called QNRT. And I think EMDR is such a buzzword, not a buzzword. It's a protocol that a lot of people are familiar with. But I guess my question to you is, I just would love you to share in your own words what it is, because I've been talking about it for so long, and how deeply profound of an experience it's been for me. And, you know, of the modalities that you work with people on in terms of their own consciousness and going inward and understanding their own patterns, just speak a little bit about, this sounds so reductive, but what works, you know, your experience. And, you know, for someone who wants to go deeper and be on this journey, of course, contemplative practices, but just a little more insight and a specific ask if you could explain QNRT.
Great. Yeah. So I'm firmly of the ground that not everything works for everyone. So there's so many different modalities and so many different approaches that I highly encourage people to invest in themselves and find what works for them. And I am certified in EMDR, and I did use that, and I think it is a great modality. It's just very labor intensive, and the client has to basically relive trauma. I think there's a lot in my work. I'm all about empowerment. So I think there's a lot you can do, which is why we got involved in meditation and mindfulness. There's tapping, the emotional freedom technique. Everything I do, I want to empower my clients so that they don't need me. And they are able to, again, have personal sovereignty. And I do train in a lot of different things because I'm so darn curious. But in my work with EMDR, I was introduced to quantum neuro reset therapy. It's probably about 10 or 15 years old. There's probably about 100 of us certified. It's very intensive, but it's similar to EMDR in the sense that you're trying to change the brain. It's a brain balancing protocol. We use lasers to do neurological testing to find the brain imbalances. We work with the meridian system and the organs to find the organ and tissue that are involved. We're working with the adrenal system, the nervous system. And basically, we're looking for an imprint, for lack of a better word, that we reset. It's not that different than EMDR. It takes 20 to 40 minutes. That's it. You do a reset. And you shift the nervous system. So this is why it's quantum. So you do the reset, and whatever emotional pathway that's been stuck there is released, and it's done. And sometimes it's really subtle, and you don't necessarily notice it, but the people around you do. And sometimes it's very obvious. I remember doing a reset with a woman who was struggling with her teenage daughter, and they hadn't spoken in a year. And we did this reset, and within a minute of the reset, the daughter called her. And the woman just started crying because she goes, first of all, my daughter never calls. She text messages me, and she's calling me. And she followed up with me later, and she said that her daughter was really kind of felt a shift and wanted to talk with her mom. So the mom said to me, is this quantum entanglement? I said, yeah, that's quantum entanglement. Like, her daughter could feel the shift and her daughter, I don't even know where her daughter was, but it's our nervous system that is extending this frequency or vibration, and it draws to us, and it, repels. And so it's hard to describe, and it's a really intense training, but you're really resetting the system. So you eliminate what's ever in there. It's kind of like what Anne said, we have our mother's stressors where, I had to have a lot of resets in my training, and some of them was my mother's stuff.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I love that point, Jacki, that there are so many different modalities, and what you said, Maureen, about QNRT. I think what's really beautiful to me is how these practices that really care for us leak out and really impact our community of family and friends around us. And Mary, I really appreciate this comment called in from Centerville. She was talking about the link between self-care and community care. And, especially with COVID and how it's impacting people's health, and of course, people of color, and just how interconnected our personal sovereignty care is to our communities. So. Right.
And this is a big piece for me, because mindfulness and meditation and some of these things can help us be more centered and more focused and let go, blah, 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 all this internal stuff, right? Which is really important. But I've been a meditator for 35 years. If you do it long enough, really do it, you get to the point where it's no longer internal. It is about the external. It is about the inner change, inner work, creating social change. And so it is really important. And this is why my husband and I got involved in the meditation mindfulness apps. But it's really important because as we transform internally, it is natural to want to go out and start supporting change externally. And I've got lots of examples about that, but I don't have a lot of time. But I totally agree with you, Mary. And what we are involved with philanthropically and what we are involved with in terms of our own personal time is really around caring and changing. Like we would really like to change the behavioral health system because it's not working. So I completely agree, Mary, with your comment.
Yeah,
We become less self-absorbed, and we shift into caring communities.
Mm. Well, thank you so much, Maureen. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I would love to invite you all to join us on ShePlace if you haven't yet. We're now a community of over 500 women and non-binary folks. We really believe that our own, prosperity and well-being is interconnected with the prosperity and well-being of everyone in our community. So that is what we're leaning into this year. Please join us on Jacki's LinkedIn page to follow She Money, where we release a lot of content around financial well-being. You can also join our online network on Mighty Networks. Shay will add some of these links for those of you that need it. And just want to thank you so much, Maureen, for your time and expertise and all that you offered this exercise and just this kind of reframe as we start out this year and think about caring in a new way. Right. So thank you so much. And Jacki, if you want to add anything, you're welcome to grab the mic. But we are now officially over time. So for those of you who have to go, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your support.
Just want to say thank you. Join us on Mighty Networks. Thanks for coming today. Maureen, love you. Maddie.
Love you.
Love you too, Maddie.
Love you all.
Love you all. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.